We can turn on our microphones. I'll call this meeting to order. Look out. This is Town Council work session for May 7th, Alpine, Wyoming. And our agenda tonight is fiscal year 2025 budget, mainly focusing on the general fund income. So I will hand it off to our clerk treasurer, Monica Chenault, and she will run us through this.
Thank you. So the sheet that you have in front of you, and any of you at home who's watching, can also access the same spreadsheet. If you click on the HTML link, it is attached to this item in the agenda on our website. And so anything that's highlighted in green, just for your information, they're numbers that I actually had data for and looked at and tried to come up with that, you know, this is where I'm landing. I do have a couple items, though, that I've highlighted in green that I think are worth having some additional discussion. So building permits being one of them. I had inquired, as I did last year as well. I looked to Christine, who is certainly the person with her finger on the pulse of what's going on in that department. And her estimation for the fiscal year 2025, with the knowledge that she had, was about $9,800. And while I understand that she can only give me what she's aware of,
right,
it doesn't really line out with even the historical information of what we've seen as far as permitting. So I wanted to make sure you guys were aware that I came up with the $42,000 by averaging the fiscal year actuals that you see on this spreadsheet. So
Yeah, that's a good start.
I mean, that's about all I can do. I mean, we all know that this is driven by what's the state of the economy. You know, we really don't have control over, you know, who's doing what project.
Yep.
And so, but I thought that the 42,000 may be a little more realistic.
I'd almost, rather under budget than.
Yeah, but I didn't want to go so far to 10,000.
Yeah.
Because clearly, in balancing the budget, we're all aware that, you know, that department will be in the red when we look at it, when we get to the expense side. And so the other one is the visitor center revenue. And so this revenue that you're seeing on year to date is what's been captured since we've actually been tracking that somewhat separately. And so my estimation of 15,000 is clearly just an estimation. Historically, as you know, all of that revenue and expense was ran through the Economic Development Fund, the 6180, which is an expense fund. So there's really not a very strong track record, and it hasn't been tracked independently until now. But that's where I started. That number, we'll see how the rest of the year goes. That number might slightly shift depending on where we go. So citations, and I'm glad that Mr. Gilcrease is here, because as you can see, the trend has been that number of the income that the town has collected has decreased year over year since 2019.
Yeah.
And that's a reflection somewhat of not having strong enforcement in the town.
Right.
And so, you know, now if the sheriff's department cited somebody for speeding on a town road, that money would funnel back to us. We don't see the money for anything that happens on the highway because that's state money. So with stronger enforcement, I can tell you, you can see that, well, you don't see it yet because you'll see it in April. The income there was a $3,000 fine levied and paid in April already. So I have estimated that we would receive $5,000 worth of income over the next fiscal year, because I think that we're going to see stronger enforcement. So those are the most noteworthy. I haven't looked at the interest income. Again, at this point, I'm budgeting far less than we've received. That's part of the state of the economy. Interest rates
Yes.
are really good.
Yeah.
And the truth is, our bank, even our local bank, has supported us by matching or almost matching what we would get if we would shift that money into Wyoming class. And so that has generated an amount, quite a bit more income than would have been
It's
projected.
amazing they were willing to match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But clearly I was going to move all of the money to,
Yeah,
and
to
I
Wyoming
had
class,
moved
yeah.
the money to Wyoming class, and that's what allowed for that. Property tax, I haven't analyzed that yet, nor do I get any information really on how I come up with an accurate number for motor vehicle tax, but I'm just basing it off of where we are year to date. So this year, and what I'm planning on budgeting for 2024. To the best of my knowledge, I believe I did that. That's the approach I took last year. I looked at what we made the previous year, and then I slightly rounded that down. And so we're trending, to date, about 4,000 higher than that. So I think that number could shift based on what we see for the rest of the year. So,
And then can you talk about, because I know under general fund, direct distribution,
yes,
can you talk a little bit about that? Because the numbers,
have dropped.
right,
Yeah. And so,
it's with their allotment. It's the way
yes.
they allot it, right?
And so, in fiscal year 2024, the governor did a special, that there was some legislation that allowed for an additional special direct distribution. So that number was bumped up last year. But you can even see from what we received in 2023 actual, the projected amount that we've got from our budget preparation handbook for fiscal year 2025, it is estimated to be $145,000 this year.
Okay.
So, so they clearly had some additional funds in their budget last year, and they did pass that on to local municipalities, but it looks like it's dropped for this year. So from even 2023. Yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
No.
And so you guys were all also provided, and it's attached to the packet as well, with the Wyoming Association of Municipalities Budget Preparation Handbook, which is a huge benefit to small municipalities throughout the state. For anybody who doesn't know, they do the research on what is being collected and those sort of things. They do caution in this book that you really have to do this and take your local economy also into consideration, because and you can even see if you look at the book that there's some municipalities whose sales tax income is decreasing, in some cases, by 5 to 10% decrease over previous years. Ours, because of where we are, we have a strong sales tax economy because we're a growing community.
Right.
And so we've benefited by that, and they're projecting again for that to increase. So, is there any questions? Oh, and like Mountain Days revenue, you guys all have access to this spreadsheet, and you will see there's a tab, just so you know, for events. And so if you look at the tab for events, that is the logic. Melody did a great job at really summarizing what she believed the income would be for all of those events. She also gave me the anticipated expenses for those those events. Clearly, income will be in the income side and expense in the expense side, but it also created, this is a net, you know,
Right.
of whether the town will actually be supporting that event, or if,
Right, there's a lot of other aspects.
yeah,
This is
there is,
one
but,
piece.
but if you're curious about those numbers come from that tab on your on the spreadsheet you have access to.
What is the proceeds from asset sales?
So that is a line item, and this information is what I have now, but I did get, Craig and I had a conversation this year, that number, this week, that number might change. So based on our initial capital
Right.
plan, depending on what you choose, and so it will be May 15th, we'll be having a 3:00 budget work session here at Town Hall. And so we're going to be talking about the capital projects and working through them. Both Craig and Rob will be here to just go through them again. There's been some changes since the last time we talked about them, you know, as they formulate their plans and really start thinking about those things. So proceeds from sale of assets is the assumption that a backhoe will be sold
Okay.
at this time. But that can change based on your
Yeah, because I
decisions
thought
about
the
what
number
to.
we had talked about was different.
Yeah, so that's the best information I had out of now. So,
And contributions and loan proceeds, just
So-
looking at how they fluctuate throughout the years, can you talk about that?
yeah, so contributions are donations.
Right,
And so the year that the 2022 actual, that is the year that the community fund,
was that the air park?
yeah, the Airport Community Fund, was funded. And so you'll also see there was also a contribution, for the Klinger property, I believe in that same fiscal year. Does that sound right, Jeremy? And then in 2023, we returned the money.
Got it.
So that is a net loss of
Right.
144, but that's because we returned $250,000 to the person who donated it. So it resulted in a net loss.
Got it.
So, and we typically, I will never budget, I don't think I'll ever budget that we're expecting a donation.
Right.
So that's not,
If they come in, great. If-
Yeah.
yeah, if they come in, that's,
Yep.
yeah. And typically when those things happen, they can be for a specific event or a specific project. And so they'll be worked through, you know, that may be something that, you know, last year, there was nothing budgeted, and we received that generous donation. I don't remember the gentleman's name for the pickleball court, you know, so it all worked out through
Yeah.
the budget, and you'll see that reflected in the amended budget.
What
And
about
then-
grant income?
So grant income will be whatever income we receive from grants. Where is that on here? That's right here. So this is basically, at the time that I did it, what I know to have left, but that's, again, going to fluctuate as we submit.
What about for the radio meter reads?
That'd be underwater.
That's underwater.
Oh, okay. So what comprises the 377?
So that, I think, is the entire amount at this point. So the entire amount of the Safe Streets for All
Oh, right.
grant but there's also a tab in your worksheet for grant income and grant expenses. So I do need to get, for the other funds, for like wastewater treatment, radio reads, I do need to get those numbers from Christine for her to tell me what's left on the grants,
Okay.
or what we expect to be left on the grants as of June 30th. But here, we should be able to do that hopefully by the end of this month.
Well, we just need somebody to win the big lotto.
Yeah, yeah. But the grant income is probably gonna be tweaked, for Safe Streets for All, because when I did the budget, worked with the Department of Transportation, to do the grant agreement, we have to do our demonstration project first, so that's gonna change what I initially had as the timeline. The truth is, I thought it would just go in and do the study, and it would all be expended in 2025. I don't know that that's the case now.
Okay.
It may, I believe some of it's gonna now flood into 2026. But we've got to determine the budget for the demonstration project to know what will be in which fiscal year. So, because we have to do that first. And that's not, when we did the grant application, we assumed that we would do the study, and as part of the study, we would do the demonstration piece, but they want that fully done, and then the demonstration piece informs the study. And what that means is we're looking at implementation of, what do they call them, Eric? Bump out, what was it?
Oh, the,
What was it?
oh,
Starts with a B.
geez, if you wouldn't have said that,
I'm
I
sorry.
probably would have got it. Yeah, it's like bump something, bump in or.
Bump out or
yeah.
some, I don't know.
It's-
So basically, it's friction.
It's where
Management.
the sidewalks are, the
Oh, you've
crosswalks are
talked
gonna
about
be.
this before.
So instead of just having the highway go straight, they have that kind of pinch point where they bring it in.
Right.
And then people have a little bit more safety before they're out in traffic.
You just
And-
bump out.
Yeah, is it bump out? Okay, I think it's something
It
like that.
didn't sound
yeah.
right to me when I started to say it. And so what they want, so that means that some of the study, the design work, because of the project needing to be done first, the design work's gonna have to, some design work's gonna have to be done, and then we're gonna have to do the demonstration piece and the study on how effective it is, and if we want to incorporate it into the overall results, and how we incorporate that in the overall results of what needs to be implemented to ensure safety as people traverse through the town of Alpine.
Right.
So it's become a little more complicated than we initially thought. So we're working through the budget. Once I know how to effectively budget it, then I'll know all these answers. So I'm waiting for a response from the Federal Department of Transportation to help me with those decisions.
Regarding rents, you have
Yes.
budgeted,
Quite a bit.
let's see,
Yeah, so that is Melvin. And I've included the medical clinic. I've included
Daycare.
the daycare, and there was something else. There's something else.
What else do we have?
Oh, small amounts of rents for Civic
I
Center.
was gonna say Civic Center, for events.
Small amounts of rent for Civic Center. Oh, and
Do you-
we receive rent, which, when you and I had talked about why I budgeted last year for that, I feel like there should have been a reason, but I couldn't remember. We receive rent for the shop from
That's right.
the water department.
yeah, it's like a reimbursement.
Because we have a long-term, a capital lease on the shop. And so they were paying $29,000 a year. You will also see under rents, I have created I've done the math. Both sewer and water utilize the shop, not just water.
22,325 for sewer, 22,325 for water.
Yes. So I've looked at that and I've edited that, and so the rent will be paid according to that schedule, unless you guys have a suggestion about a different way to do it. But they
How are you
do.
breaking it up? What
Is
percentage?
it 20, what did I do?
22,325 for each.
Yeah. And what is does it tell you the percentage? Look at the
Yeah,
front.
25 and 25.
For both of them? And-
Yeah, 25 water,
and the
25
town does
sewer,
that.
50 for
Because the
general.
majority of the
Yeah.
equipment that sits in the shop is snow removal equipment.
Right.
Takes up the floor space. So, yeah. So this way, they both will pay their fair share.
Okay.
So it's somewhat lowered what water will pay, but it's clearly now an obligation of sewer as well. So, yeah.
That's
Thank you,
good.
Jeremy.
They deserve to pay their rent.
Yeah.
Okay,
What else?
Just the differences in the lodging tax. I'm just curious.
So lodging tax, the reason it's so high this year is because of the monies that have been being held by the county for, how long, Jeremy, do you think?
Years.
I would guesstimate around 3 years.
Yeah, so the county has been collecting those monies and holding them until individual municipalities had their own travel and tourism
Right.
boards.
Right.
And so they have released those funds. It was roughly about $202,000.
204.
Hmm?
204.
204, thank you, Jeremy. And so the rest of that is just what's been collected since then. So, yeah,
I forgot that they had held on.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what I've done is look at what we've been getting the last few months, and I multiply it by 12.
Perfect. That's what I was going to ask. So the 84 is your best guess?
$7,000, I think it's 7,000 times 12.
No, that's
I think
perfect.
that's
And
safe.
then end of this fiscal year, because we will have monies left over, we're not spending all that $204,000 in the first year, you'll know to be able to roll it over to make actuals.
Yeah.
Or end of year
Of
actuals.
what's left over.
Yes, and so one of the things with the travel and tourism money, that is, I've created a reserve account specific so that what'll happen at the end of every fiscal year, we will look at the income you brought in, any expenses, and do the math, and then we will shift the full balance into a reserve account that is set aside and cannot be spent for anything but you. So we shift it out.
So essentially, the reserve account, so we issue, we'll say, $150,000 in grants. That $150,000 will go to your reserve account, and then those grants, as they come and give us receipts for what they were granted.
No,
Is that what we're
actually,
talking about? How-
no.
It should just be the
So
leftovers.
every,
That'd be the leftover.
yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, so whatever income and expense, so anything that's spent, so let's say we
Gotcha.
pay out 25,000 in grants,
Right,
right?
so the 235, we issue 150.
Yes,
That difference will go, that $85,000
yeah.
difference.
So,
will
well,
go
for
to
right now, you have an income of 242, 397.17 as of 3/24. Let's say you spent $5,000 so far,
Yep.
and let's say that's all you spend by the end of, so I'm literally gonna put 237, whatever, into the reserve, and then as you spend it, it will hit the expense account throughout the whole year. All your income will come into the income account, all your expense will go out. At the end of the year, then, let's say then next year, which is when you'll actually issue your grants, let's say you bring in 84,000 and you spend 150, you're gonna net a negative number, and that's gonna reduce your reserve fund.
Got it.
So it's gonna happen every year on the 30th, rather than try to, like, play with that every month. That's the goal.
It will be interesting to see what
Yeah,
the 84,000 ends up, how realistic that is, because
Well,
within this fiscal year, we will be adding 2 hotels, basically.
Exactly, yeah,
So,
so that's just a
Yeah.
pie in the
Total
sky.
guess, yeah.
Yeah.
it is. I just literally took the $7,000 you got the previous month and multiply it by 12.
Yeah, no,
And we
it's
can
perfect.
tweak that. I mean, if for some reason that number goes up, because I haven't, I've started April, to close out April. Once I close out April, that 2024 column and the amended will be edited within a couple
And
days.
after we approve this one for fiscal year next year, we'll be amending this again because,
At the end of the year.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so you'll be able to
Yeah.
redo it all over again. Yep.
Yeah. So, oh, and Emily, you'd asked about loan proceeds, and that would be if we borrow money. Now, the thing that may happen, depending on what, as we work through this budget, when we look at the monies, the truth is, one of the items that has been requested for capital is another loader with a wing.
Yes.
So, and that, I think, was estimated to be $388,000. There will be a sale of some assets as well, including the dump truck, which is not on here.
Which he's hoping to get
A backhoe,
Yeah.
a dump truck. So we'll have all that for the 15th meeting. And so, but as we work through the budget, if the budget income doesn't support that, then we're gonna have to look at how we fund that. Whether it's through previous year's fund balance or capital lease. Or, that's a decision that,
Well,
but
we also don't want to just break even, that's not.
no, but until we work through all the income and assets, that decision is probably one of the last decisions we make,
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because our goal is to try to do it. I would really like to not borrow any money this
No.
year. That's kind of my goal.
Should we be considering, in the next meeting, essentially selling that equipment, approving them to sell? What's that process like?
And so we would have to just add it to, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's been explained to me that once we've determined that we're selling that equipment, we have to put it on the surplus list, which we've done that process for a couple other small things we've sold. We will I'll do a resolution adding it to the surplus list, and then we will ask, if it's over $500 value, we will do a request for bids for the sale of those assets.
Okay.
And then we will open bids at, it has to be done publicly. And so the bids will be open, and then I would assume whoever bids the most, unless we have a minimum required amount, which probably for some of it we will, and then we will.
Don't
sell
we should start that process now then, if we want to, have
Well,
budget numbers. Why don't we
Well,
talk about it on the 15th?
I think talk about on the
And then
15th, and then we can
earmark it for the
take action.
21st.
We can actually I can put it on the agenda. You can
Yeah.
tell me to put
I
it
didn't
on
quite
the
think it was
agenda.
gonna be that complicated, so that's a great question.
You can't, and in truth, I know it's awkward, but we can't decide to sell the equipment through the budget workshop meetings. However, you can tell me to put it on the agenda for the 21st, and you can make a decision there. Okay, so that's so just let me know what you want me to do.
Yeah, they're coming to our first budget meeting, right?
Yes.
Craig and Rob.
Yeah, and it's likely they'll be at some of the others too, because then we're gonna be talking about water and sewer income and expense overall.
Okay.
But I kinda wanna get through, there's been some shifts
Yeah.
from what we originally talked about. I really wanna look at these capital projects, and I've asked Craig, him and I are meeting, on Monday morning, right after our staff meeting. We're gonna sit down and we're gonna go through all this. But then I've asked him to prioritize these projects. Himself, about his own priorities. And then I think as a council that you need to prioritize them, or perhaps reprioritize them. And so that as I'm working through this budget, we'll see where, do you know what I mean, where our money's.
Yeah, I appreciate him fleshing that out. 'cause
Yeah,
he
he's-
still had a lot of holes.
Yeah,
so I
he's,
think
yeah,
it'll be
he's worked through
illuminated
that.
when he comes.
Yes, and he's really been thoughtful about it, and, I mean, in one of the renditions I have, and I think it's on your spreadsheet, he was thinking about replacing the mower, but he knows he's asking for a lot, and he said, we're gonna take it off. I said, well, we'll talk about it on Monday. If you no longer want that on your list, we can take it
How
off.
much is a mower?
Jeremy, there should be an asset. Capital projects. Should say something about a mower.
Mower, let's see, blower, pump,
We're doing all right.
mower, there we go. $26,142.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, they just need to prioritize. I mean,
yeah, that's why I told him, I said, it's okay to leave it on your list too, but if it's not something you need right now, then let's just put it down on the priorities. I don't think it's a bad thing for you guys to understand the things that
I'd love
he's
to see.
concerned about.
I want to see a huge list where it's got everything that we should be concerned about.
Okay.
It should say like, probably doesn't have to be replaced this year, but you should be considering it for
Right.
next year.
Yeah.
Or,
Just like what we're having Rob do. What are we 5
Yeah.
years out?
Yeah,
Needs.
Yeah.
It's similar to the maintenance plan that we came up for the automobiles.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
we know every 5 years we're gonna be replacing an automobile.
Right.
Yeah.
Or of our trucks, so.
Well, I will certainly encourage Craig to put everything he thinks
Yeah,
on that
why not?
list then when we get together on Monday.
So that kind of segues into a few questions I have. So,
What's that?
For streets and roads,
Yes.
specifically for snow removal, how, because ideally, for me, setting that pie in the sky of what we spent last year, hopefully that's worst case scenario.
Right.
Have that our limited budget for next year. And then if we don't receive it, so my thinking is, we have the pie in the sky, $250,000 for
Yep.
snow removal, whatever it was. However, we also take a 5-year average not including 23, or 22, 23.
Right.
So more realistically, around 140 to 150,000.
Yeah.
We put the difference, say 100,000, 90 to 100,000, in another reserve account that can only be tapped by the council come February of next year, if we foresee us maybe getting to that point. If we don't tap into that reserve account, then it goes to a mower, it goes to paying off something, or it goes to another piece of equipment.
Right.
But that way.
And late in the budget season, or late
Yeah,
in the fiscal
exactly.
year.
This time, in my mind, spring is kind of if we got it, let's spend it. What are those things that you need? What are things that are gonna make us more efficient, make their lives easier, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and there's a considerable,
So as I look at the streets and roads and snow removal, I know
Yeah.
things are different
Yeah.
than they were in previous, because
Right.
but everything that says snow on it totals
Yes.
$79,000.
correct.
So where am I missing
The rest.
the rest?
So, yeah, and so they did not report snow removal plowing that much. We didn't have the time into it. So last year, there wasn't any tracking of actual hours of how much was snow versus, so they're literally now reporting to me snow removal, and that started in February. So their time sheets that they're turning in are broken out by, I spent this many hours in snow removal, I spent this many hours in streets, I spent this
Right.
much time in collection, distribution, all of that. And so the information's better, but the truth is, last year, they were working on snow removal from November till April.
Right.
And so all of their time was booked to snow removal, for the most part.
It
So
wasn't
then
as
how do-
accurate as the information.
It wasn't
I
as
was
accurate.
using,
Right, so then how do we accurately budget it for next fiscal year? So
Well,
right now,
so-
we're up to 79,000, which is far
So
short of what needs to be.
I have created.
Well, hold on,
Yeah,
let
go
me
ahead.
clarify. So maybe the information that we had going in on years past was not accurate enough? I think, is that what you're getting at?
Well, they were
no,
billing.
it
for
definitely
snow.
was, because it wasn't, we'd only been doing snow removal personally, or as a
Yeah,
town,
for
for
a
a
few
few years.
Yeah.
Right.
So prior to that, we contracted out, and that was, last time we budgeted for, I want to say it was around 120 to 140,000 plus, depending on the snow, that was the
Okay.
base. Plus.
What year was that? So I can go back and look.
I want
No?
to say the last year was maybe 2018,
17.
2019, something like
I
that.
bet you it's been at least 5 or 6 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me look at that.
1, 2, 3.
I agree, I like
Maybe
your
24.
mindset.
Yeah,
If we
so-
set aside that, and then we, we don't necessarily have to put it in a separate account, but we do earmark
Right.
it in the.
Well,
new
and I'm thinking a separate account, that way Craig knows, okay, I have 150,000 budgeted for snow removal, and then he can plan accordingly. Yes, there's a reserve, but he needs to come to us for the reserve, so we can kind of critique it, so to speak.
Yeah.
My thinking is, if we give him 140 or any, we'll just put streets and roads person in that, we give them that budget, that's the budget they need to take care of, and that's the budget they need to keep within. Now, on no fault of their own, if it just keeps snowing, then they're gonna say, hey, I've tried to keep my guys at, this, keeping to this hour, making a tight ship, But obviously, we've got 12 feet of snow out there.
Right.
We need more money, if you will, on it.
Yeah.
No, I agree, because I think it's difficult as a department head to take
Yeah.
a look at that budget, and if it is a very large budget, obviously, they think that they can
Right.
take care of all of that.
Right.
It would be better to set a standard for the
Yeah.
amount, and then just let him know, you're not, don't worry, you can pull, but
I think
it's a different
also,
process.
so hopefully we can get more accurate information on that. And
Maybe
then
you monitor.
also with the suggestions that Craig has for the new pieces of equipment that we want, I think we'll even be able to be more
More
efficient.
efficient.
So,
Yeah, because it actually requires one less person.
Right,
yeah.
Yeah.
that would be huge.
Yeah, and our most expensive cost is personnel. And frankly, last year, we looked at that based on the previous year, and all the time that was booked from one date to the next is how snow removal was determined. And then there is a cost to the materials for the sand and fuel. We didn't spend anywhere near as much money in fuel. We didn't spend anywhere near as much money in sand as the previous year. So all those costs were down
Right.
dramatically this
So
year.
going forward for next year, everything that says snow on here totals $79,000.
We need to look at that.
We need,
Maybe it's
we
not
need,
enough.
I
Right.
mean,
Yeah, no,
So-
and so, how I'll look at that is I have a spreadsheet that I've done on salaries, and I've started to break that down. And so hopefully, with Craig's assistance, we gotta come up with a more accurate way, because last year, I literally looked at it from all their time plus overtime is going from this date to this date is gonna be, part of that. But realistically, they do things like lift stations. It's all right, Frank.
Hi, Frank.
Yeah, it's 6.
It's,
Oh, are you serious?
there's 2 meetings.
there's 2 meetings. That's okay, Frank. We missed you though.
It's okay. I just woke up in Moab this morning and traveled through blizzard after blizzard after blizzard to get here on time, but it's good. It's all right.
And he was there 5 minutes early too, just so you know. So.
It's okay.
But realistically, we have to understand what people are actually doing, and until now we have the system
So,
to figure
yeah.
that out. So it's gonna be somewhat of a, okay, we're gonna book this percentage of their time from this date to this date
Right.
for budget reasons, but the truth is, we're not gonna know this until we go through one full winter
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
It's still going
What-
to be a guess no matter what, until
Yeah.
we have a few years under our belt of actual, man hours. But up until February of this year, we weren't really tracking it accurately as far as, the man hours towards snow. So eventually we'll get closer, but
But we
I
can
see
look
what
at
you're
that
saying.
number.
Like, I don't know if the number's 240. I mean, I think that may have been a little elevated.
It probably
but It
was.
was a big year, but, we need to pick that number wherever we think it lands.
Yeah.
I agree, set aside some money. If we have extra, we spend it on the essential things that we want for the end of that, but I think that works out great, so.
But
Yeah.
again, we need to put, because the budget's not going to work out if we got 79,000 only budgeted for
No,
next year.
absolutely.
No, that's what we're saying. She's gonna look at it
Okay.
more closely and.
Yeah,
we're-
so there'll be
We'll
a-
probably be upping that.
Yeah, so what you're gonna see in the budget as it progresses now that, I have the salary worksheet done. So the salary worksheet literally is breaking out, we're gonna break out based on some preconceived ideas. That's all we can do for budget purposes this year until we actually collect the data, about what everybody's doing and how much time they're spending in each department. But it's gonna be broke out by salaries, taxes, and benefits. And so that's all gonna be then pushed into that, and then, we're gonna come up with, Craig and I will try to come up with a pretty good, on a normal year, what do you spend in sand? On a normal year, what should we spend in fuel? And then plug those things in as well. We're gonna try to do it better.
That's if we even tracked it before,
It's somewhat tracked. So
Okay.
here, again, everything that happened from November till April was every gallon of fuel that was delivered to the shop was booked to snow.
Which isn't accurate.
And that's not accurate. Every load of stone,
Yeah.
even if it went in a ditch for water, it sometimes was booked to snow. And so we're trying to do better, but
No,
think it was
this
inflated.
year
Yeah.
We just might need a bigger reserve. I think that would be really helpful. If we'll get to the best number that we can, and then we'll just put a larger chunk in the reserve, and we'll see what we have.
yeah,
after
and
a
that's
year.
something that we don't have in general fund, guys. We don't have any reserve money.
Yes.
And
That
I,
needs to change.
so it's not required by statute in the way, and while we do have some, we had some funds that were called sort of quasi-reserves, we
Right.
weren't really
They weren't
funding them
really
appropriately in the
Yeah.
enterprise funds, and we will be doing that moving forward. However,
But that's best.
we
practice.
don't have a reserve fund. I mean, what we have is this prior year fund balance things that happens. It's part of governmental accounting. But in truth, there's extra money in the bank, and if you guys want to set up some sort of reserve fund, we can certainly do that. I'm sure it's not a problem, correct, Jim, from a legal standpoint? So, I mean, it's something we can do, and that, what that means, it's not that you can't use it, it's that you can set parameters about how it gets used
Yes.
and why it gets used, and then it requires, it's kind of like requiring both people to go to the bank to sign something.
Would
You know what I
that
mean?
be
You have, it has to be
Would that be an
thoughtful.
ordinance
Jim?
to write that, a reserve, would that be a,
Yeah, you have to have an ordinance.
that, yeah, so we should consider that, maybe we make it this summer, we, after the budget season.
We'll know
Make it-
where we are end of
Yeah.
year and then go from there. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then going down to parks.
Yes.
Is the $10,000, where's that? Is that within that 40,000? Park repair and maintenance, or is that park utilities, park salaries?
Are you
We're-
talking
the-
expenses?
So that $10,000 is actually not in the budget. You're not gonna see that in the budget, unless it's being spent. That income's already there. It's in a restricted account.
Okay. Because that's what, wanting to get things off the books.
Yes,
For ATAP, I want to
yeah.
finish the park this summer. And
So
get
that's
that
still
off
in
our
that
books as
old-
well. Okay,
That's still in that old way of doing things, and any time that there will be some ongoing restricted money for parks, because there's $10,000, I believe, that was for Ferry Peak Park in the event that equipment breaks or something. Do you know what I mean? There's some of that stuff that's gonna have to continue to be maintained. And while I addressed some of them recently through resolutions, I have not addressed all of them yet,
okay.
so.
And then back to the events for income events and versus Mountain
Yep.
Days. So Mountain Days just has its own separate line item, whereas events are, say, money we bring in from a car show, from Winter Jubilee, from Pumpkin Patch, from
Yeah.
anything other than Mountain Day.
Yeah.
Let's set aside 4th of July to have their own line item.
No, just Mountain Days. And that's a carryover from having its own checking account and having a restricted / reserve account for Mountain Days. And so, and so they're doing some things with some of those monies that have been carried over right now. Spider boxes, is that the right term? They're gonna get some spider boxes to allow for some expansion
Oh,
of
the electrical?
electricity,
They've been talking
to provide better power over there. They're also doing some improvements to the internet, because we had some internet issues last year. And so all that's gonna come out of that reserve. So we did a resolution last month that sets up the same system that we did for travel and tourism. That is not gonna be a checking account called Mountain Days. It's going to be a reserve fund, the same way as travel and tourism. So the checking account balance is moved into reserve. It starts the new reserve. And then for this fiscal year, all income is brought in, all expenses is taken out, and then the net difference, either gain or loss,
Right.
is either added or subtracted.
Okay.
So, yeah, so that's just a carryover
Yeah, because
To
it's
allow
hard
them
to see big picture.
to keep expanding that, yeah.
Bye.
What else?
Any other questions? I want to give us like a 5-minute break before the town council meeting, the special meeting, but,
Because today, I thought we were just going over
That's okay.
Yeah.
general.
That's okay, if he has questions that we can answer in the
yeah,
next couple
we
minutes,
still have a
let's
few
do
more
it.
minutes,
That's all I
but
have.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
We'll
I just
probably-
meant we're
Budget.
having a whole work session on.
we're having budget meetings
Right,
starting
okay.
the 15th. Monica, why don't you
'Cause
just
I didn't
announce
even
one
bring
more
those
time when those are?
questions.
yeah, and so we're going to have budget meetings on May 15th, May 22nd, May 29th, and June 5th, which are all Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. And we're having them at that time of the day, not to leave the public out, but to allow our employees to attend without being,
Yeah,
kept here
working
until
overtime.
late in the evening. Because the employees are a big, the department heads, and they're a big part of this process. And I'd like them to be able to be here to address it. So next one, the goal is to address capital, and possibly, depending on what happens Monday with the capital, we may add, we may be able to start working through some of the expense accounts on the general fund. Water and sewer will be held independently. One meeting will be water, one meeting will be sewer.
Yep, that makes
So-
sense. Any other questions for Monica? Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll just adjourn this meeting and then we'll get into town council here in 5 minutes.
Off your mics.
Perfect timing.
Not down Watson Drive.
Turn on. turn on your microphones. I'll call this meeting to order. That was for you, Frank. This is town council meeting. It's a special meeting on May 7th, 2024 for the town of Alpine. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Good evening. Councilman Larson.
Here,
Councilman Dickerson.
Here.
Mayor Green.
Here.
Councilman Castillo.
Here.
And Councilman Burchard.
Here.
Mayor Green, you have a quorum of the council with all members present.
Thank you. First action item tonight was the MOU with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department, and we invited Sheriff Johnson to come and answer any questions we had. So we call you up if you don't mind. Appreciate you coming. I know you had to come from Kemmer. Do you mind hitting that button on that microphone there? And then, yeah, perfect. So we had a meeting, I guess it was a month ago, and we kind of were going over the new contract. And the town council just had a few questions and wanted to understand why it's increasing, what it should look like going forward, and thought we'd invite you. So appreciate you coming, and didn't know if you wanted to just run us through in general, kind
Sure.
of the lay of the land.
Sure. I'll just give a little history first on the contract. Several years ago, we got together, Sheriff's Office, Alpine, Star Valley Ranch. Alpine and Star Valley Ranch were in the need of law enforcement and have a little bit more enforcement because Star Valley Ranch never had a PD. Alpine found themselves without a police department at the time. And so we entered into a contract, kind of a three-way contract, knowing that Star Valley Ranch was going to pay some, Alpine was going to pay some, and we were going to add an additional deputy to the sheriff's office for patrol for the purposes of having a little more presence in Alpine and Star Valley Ranch. So that's been that way for several years. And a lot has changed, including population in Star Valley Ranch, population in Alpine, in Star Valley in general, and feel like it's time, along with wanting more of a presence, time to take a look at that contract and have it represent more what the true costs are to some extent. I mean, it's still not, it's still low, but between a little bumping it to 130 for Alpine, 130 for Star Valley Ranch, the intent is to add an additional deputy, which again increase the presence in Alpine and Star Valley Ranch. So that was the reason behind it and some of the history behind it. There's some, I do want to make sure that it's understood. I'm not advocating for a contract. I'm not saying, hey, you should go with us. I'd be more than happy to support you guys in a police department any way that I could. And I can tell you what my opinion is of the upsides of that and the downsides of it, quite honestly, because I really have no agenda. I'm not on a power trip. I don't want to take over the county. In fact, I'm to the point where, you know, if you guys want to have a PD, I'll help you any way I can. But the reality is that there's some consistency that comes with the sheriff's office, and one of the things that happens, I mean, we could go on a lot about it, but for instance, big events that happen in Alpine that requires, you know, 4 or 5 deputies at a time and a seasoned detective, that's something that the sheriff's office has. That doesn't mean we wouldn't help a PD, but that's some of the things that are available with the sheriff's office because we have a bigger department. Small departments, we have them throughout the state. We have them in Lincoln County. We end up covering for them a fair amount, and but there are advantages to that too. They work a police chief works for the mayor, and it's something that's really important to the mayor. They direct the police chief, and it gets done. Although I think we have a great relationship, and I can't think of any things where we're in disagreement. There is some advantage to having a guy that works for you and that drives around that says Alpine Police Department and does what you want him to do. So, without going on too much, I'd be happy to ask questions, but some of the things that come with that obviously are, when you start all the equipment that goes along with it, the insurance, the liability is a big thing, record management system, all those type of things that it takes to start a police department.
The administration, more than anything, right, is what?
Administration is a huge part of it. So if you have a one-man department, they still have to do all the same things that administration does in any other department. So scheduling and submitting reports and doing state reports and pulling a report for whatever you'd like to see. So there's some duplication of services there, in my opinion.
Yep.
A records management system, when we first got our system, it was, I want to say around, this is going back 15 years now, about $130,000, and we pay just an annual maintenance fee for the modules that we have of over $30,000. Again, that's something that you need to have in order to run a police department. So there are some cost savings by sharing those services.
Yep.
So.
Can you give us just a really high-level view of, let's just say, we got to the point where our population justified having our own police department. Would that be 5% or 10%, and what would that cost in your estimation?
So I guess the best examples I could give is something, Afton PD, their budget is over $500,000 at this point. They have 4 officers.
Okay.
Kemmer PD is close to $1 million with 7 officers. You have some small departments, Diamondville PD, Cokeville PD. They're right around that $250,000 area. And again, in those cases, when they both want vacation at the same time or they're away at training, there's nobody there.
Yep.
And they call on us to say, can you take emergency calls for us? And so if something happens in Cokeville or Diamondville, then we respond, handle it. Depending on what it is, turn it over to them when they get back or just handle it. So, it's not cheap. I totally agree. There becomes a point, population-wise, where it makes more sense. The last thing that I want to do is say, hey, contract with the sheriff's office, then everybody be pissed at the sheriff's office. That's not good. I mean, we want to do the best job possible, and recognizing that customer service in the law enforcement field is always a really difficult thing to judge, because not everybody's happy with us no matter what we do.
Cups felt so good.
Yeah, right. It's just we don't get a lot of 5-star reviews. So, yeah. So, I'm committed to doing the best job that we can, understanding that, again, this, it's a difficult job, and we do things and oftentimes we're put in positions where one party's okay with us at that point and the other party's not, and we understand that. But I don't want to say, let's enter into a contract and then have the town of Alpine go, no, we're not getting what we deserve. We're not getting the service that we want. We're not getting the quality that we want. So I'm committed to that part of it, but there does become a point, and I think Alpine's headed that direction, where it makes sense to say it's time to have our own police department. I will add one thing, that one of the difficulties we have, especially in this end of the county, and especially your proximity to Teton, is you're competing with the highest paid departments in the state, in Jackson PD and Teton. I mean, they're consistently $30,000 a year above what we're paying. So, how do I say this without being, you don't lose the ones that you wouldn't mind if they left. You lose the good ones. They're the ones that are getting recruited away from you. So, so that's another challenge that Alpine specifically is going to have even more than other places, is that you get recruited away from a department that has a lot to offer financially.
So we're gonna have to pay more when we get to that point. Say Afton's at $500,000, we might have to be at whatever plus just to keep people long-term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be competitive with what's happening up the canyon, you're starting guys at 80 plus, and they're topping out at over 100,000 a year. And that's just salary. Then you got retirement benefits.
That's a whole nother.
Yeah. If you go get a patrol truck and load it up with everything you need, handheld radio, in-car radio, you're pushing 10,000 right there, just for the radios. Taser, firearm. I mean, it's just expensive to the whole thing. Again, there becomes a point where it makes sense, and I can't determine when that is. You guys have to, but
We'll get that figured out eventually.
yeah.
I'll just ask you one more question, then we'll open it up to town council. But can you just run through real quick, at the 130,000 level, what differences we should anticipate seeing?
So the hope is, and what our commitment is you're just going to see more of us. The other thing is that with some of that, with some of those funds, I've added to. Now, I just came out of a budget meeting in Kemmer, so my budget's it doesn't get approved till July. But my intention, and what I've done in the past even, is build some overtime in there so we can put out shifts that say that there's a shift in Alpine, specifically Alpine. You come up here, run some radar, drive in the neighborhoods, be seen in Alpine. That's an additional patrol deputy on the street than what the regular shifts are. So that's something that we're trying to do to just add to the presence, which I think is a big part of it, being seen. You know, not everybody, you always hear you're never a cop around when you need one, type of thing. Being seen is a big part of, it's hard to say what the value is, because you don't know what you've prevented or what the possible effect is, but it's a positive effect if you know deputies are around. It changes behavior, whether that's traffic or on up, DUIs. If they know that, the last couple times they left the bar, there was a deputy down the street, then it changes behavior. So.
I think that's the big thing. I think it's finding the right time that the deputies come by so that, it's not the same time in the afternoon. It's kind of when we see more nefarious activity happening.
In the evenings.
Right.
Yeah. Which is consistent throughout the valley, that,
Right.
It's a little busier in the evenings. Yeah, I think, and that's part of why, and I've even put out to the guys, if you want to go work an Alpine shift, double up in the same car, go down there, make some traffic stops, be seen, patrol the neighborhoods, make sure that they know that we're around. And so that's part of what's been built into that budget.
Okay. Any other specific questions for the sheriff?
I just think, what limitations do you see, just knowing kind of what our needs are and how we're ramping up? Is there anything specific that you feel like we might come up against? Because there's a lot of pros, I'm just trying to see.
Yeah, I think I added an additional position last year just out of the county funds. Well, I was working on a grant. Part of it's paid through a grant. So I added an additional one last year, an additional one this year, with hopes of, I still think on any given night we're a little shorthanded countywide. We got 4,000 square miles. Obviously, a lot of it's not patrolled, but the residential areas it's a long drive from Afton to here, or Smoot to here, or from here to Smoot. And it will always be, again, this kind of goes back to the advantage and disadvantage of a police department, will always be that we are going to prioritize calls. If that call is in Thane and we need 3 deputies there, there's not gonna be anybody in Alpine in all likelihood. Same time, if that priority call's in Alpine, all three of them are gonna be here. And so that's, again, there's larger resources to, throw towards the problem that when it is here in Alpine.
So that deputy will still have the hub in Afton and still be commuting from Afton unless there's a call that takes them a bit closer, or will they hover a little bit?
So we have, so the main office is in Afton. There's certain things that happen there. We're working really hard with the mayor to get this, a substation office. We're getting pretty close to that. We got that cleared out, so they can come here instead of going back to Afton for things that could be done remotely. They can work from their vehicle. They all have iPads. Most things are wireless, but we're got a computer we'll set up here, so if they need to print reports. Plan is to possibly get an intoximeter, so someone that's arrested here we can do the testing here instead of driving to Afton for that testing. And you've probably heard me say it before. You get arrested in Alpine and DUI and end up in Kemmer, you're not drunk by the time you get to Kemmer. You're sober. It just becomes that's a long drive.
Yeah.
And then you get out the next morning, you got to find a way to get home too. But
Yeah, just for response times. I just
Yeah.
wanted to know your best.
Well, and we should also clarify, we're talking about still building a house here in the Alpine, so that would house one of your deputies.
yes,
Yep.
and we have some people. We have some deputies that are interested in asking about that, and so we need to. When I say we, it's kind of in my park right now, in my ballpark right now, to get the commissioners on board and convinced. I think we've had some good discussions with that. Try and put something together. I don't have a good sense of if construction costs have leveled off at all or if it's still crazy, but I mean, that would be the goal, is to get something like that going and house a deputy here. So their shift would start from here, but also B, when there's backup needed, there's somebody already here. And incidentally, the person that wants to move up here is also married to a Jackson PD officer, so there would be a presence there that I think would benefit the county, or the town of Alpine and the county both. So
Sounds good. Any other questions specifically regarding the contract? I know you guys have read through it, but I think it's kind of lays it out pretty simply. It's the same contract as before. It's essentially just a little bit more, if I'm not mistaken, right?
it's very similar. Yeah. There's not big changes in it. I think, and I would encourage the Alpine still have a municipal officer presence, because a lot of those things that come in are not, I mean, for the amount of the contract and the resources, things like the barking dogs and things that can be handled at a municipal officer level, I think is still best handled that way. And I think that's, the way that it's been, and I think it's worked out well.
Well, we have our new code enforcement officer, Steve Gilcrease. He's here, and we're going to. We've already seen a lot of things get caught when we just have someone looking, similar to what you have going on. So, yeah, we're already catching a lot of new things, and obviously we'll be proactive about that. But yeah, that's already been good. But would you suggest we get like a vehicle or whatever?
It wouldn't hurt, depending on what he's comfortable with. I mean, I think if you have something on there that says Alpine municipal enforcement, or community enforcement, I think that's.
Do you have any old vehicles you're getting rid of?
We
Never
do.
buy a
We do have we do have one that was a canine vehicle that smells like the dog's still in there, even though the dog's been gone for years.
Right?
We don't care.
Okay. Well, yeah. I think we're probably moving that way as well.
I will, the one thing that, when I hear him say, though, about the coordination with the municipal officer, we need to recognize that we do not have a full-time municipal officer. Now, we didn't before either,
Yeah.
technically, but he was a full-time employee of the town of Alpine. He didn't have another job. His pay was split between multiple departments, but he was here
Right.
and fully dedicated. So I will say that, you know, without a full-time person, we all know that Steve's going to be he's working at getting another job. And so that's going to mean there's going to be a period of time where if somebody's dog's barking, nobody's going to be here as
Yep.
well. And so it's just food for thought that dynamic does shift under the way we're
Under our
currently
current,
the way we're
Right.
doing it. It's just food for thought. I'm not making a recommendation. It's just something we need to recognize that, you know,
Well, eventually, we're gonna get to the position where it justifies a full-time position.
that's true.
So,
You're
I mean,
exactly
we're probably
right.
not that far off, but
But-
we're not quite there yet,
But
but
in truth, we did talk a little bit about the budget, and if there is more income that comes in from citations, then we have more money to spend.
Yeah.
Just saying.
True.
and more time
That said,
spent
we don't need to be a police.
finding violations.
And there's, you know, there's a balance there.
Yeah.
There is.
That, if there's one thing that I'm, maybe have differences with some of the mayors that we contract with, not Mayor Green, but that, you know, more tickets, and I'm not a big fan of that. I'm a fan of writing tickets to the people that need it.
deserve it.
And I'm a fan of taking the least amount of enforcement necessary to change behavior. If you've stopped the guy 3 times and he needs a ticket. Or if he's doing 25 over, he needs a ticket, but.
Yeah.
But there is, you know, and there's municipalities that look at that and that's part of their budget, you know, we're planning on 30,000 from tickets this year but anyway, that's different philosophies for different areas.
Well, I appreciate you coming up and
bet.
talking to us. I think we're probably gonna have another discussion here, but hopefully get something on the books here real soon. It'd be nice if you knew what was happening sooner rather than later for your budget process, right?
Yeah, and I'll just tell you, I put in for an additional one, assuming that these contracts go through and put in my budget for an additional vehicle and equipment to equip that officer. It's all in there. I don't expect any issues that way. I don't think that's gonna be a problem as far as, you know, it's always been, because these funds don't come to the sheriff's office, they go to the general fund, and then I budget them. And then the general fund, you know, supplies my budget, but it's, any income that comes in the county has to go to the general fund,
Right.
so, and I don't anticipate a problem there.
One last question, and you've been in discussions with Star Valley Ranch, obviously, and
Yes.
have they been open to this?
Yes, the last thing I heard from the mayor was that there was a couple changes their attorney wanted to make, and they were gonna send it, but they're moving forward with
Okay.
it, so. And that's kind of what makes it work too, is that
Sure.
you're kind of, it's a shared, responsibility, and it allows us to hire somebody else
Yeah.
between the two.
And you'll put serving the town of Alpine on one
We-
side, you'll
we
put
can.
serving the town of Star Valley Ranch on the other.
Yeah.
And so when they drive through town, they always have the one
Well,
side show.
I think that's, you know, one of the things that, as things progress, is that you can have, you know, kind of a resident officer, whether it's Alpine PD or contract city, that when you get to that point, that stays here all the time, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, thank you very much.
yep, you bet. Thanks.
I would entertain a motion if anyone wanted to.
Make a motion to seek approval to enter into MOU with Lincoln County Sheriff's Office to provide services within the town of Alpine from July 1, 2025 through December 31, 2026, at an annual cost of $130,000 per year, and authorize Mayor Green to sign the MOU.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded, discussion.
I would welcome Mr. Gilchrist forward in case you had any information to share.
Steve Gilchrist, your code enforcement officer. So I spent 27 years in law enforcement in Texas. The last 5 as a police chief, where I started a police department, had 5 SRs. Granted, it was a school-based police department, but there's no difference in a school-based police department than a municipal police department. For a town of this size, for Alpine, to start a police department, you need at least 2 officers here. And you're looking at probably about $350,000 a year budget, full-time coverage. This contract, it's not. We're gonna have full coverage here. They're gonna split the time between here and Star Valley Ranch. And we're growing and we need full-time coverage. Or when I say full-time coverage, at least 8 to 12 hours out of the day. Because it's going to happen eventually. Bank's going to get robbed here. Deputy's going to be in Star Valley. And he's an employee of the county. And you heard him right there. If there's another call somewhere else and needs more deputies, he's gone. And, in my opinion, $130,000 for part-time, it's a little stretch to me, honestly. We're seeing an influx of illegals. It's not going to decrease. It's going to increase. And as we see more and more, they're going to start seeing how many homes in this area are summer homes, and they're going to start burglarizing them. It's coming. Might be a year or two. Right now, one of the reasons is you're not seeing many burglaries here is because there's no pawn shops nearby to sell the stuff. The other day, I was over here at my storage buildings, and there were 2 kids walking down the street, 2 Hispanic kids. They're 16, 18 years old. Had gang tats all over them. And they stared me down, and I know what they are. I've dealt with them 27 years. Safety and security.
Highway, like going towards.
On 100 up here, on the old Alpine. Safety and security is paramount. And I just don't feel that with this contract, with the part-time, we're going to get really what the coverage we need, honestly.
So in your opinion, 130,000 for what we've got in the contract is a good or not a good deal?
Not a good deal. I think that in the contract, you need to specify hours.
Mm-hmm.
Say, as it's stated right now, it's,
I think, I guess I would push back a little bit, that if we put hours on there, then everyone knows the hours that they're going to.
well, just say,
Yeah.
not just say from 8 to 8, certain amount of hours during the day, or certain, maybe he's here from, works today from 8 to 6. Tomorrow he's here from 12 to 5.
Right.
Swap up, but commit, have the sheriff commit to having an officer here certain amount of hours a day. Because that way, everybody get used to seeing the presence is what you need.
Right.
I think it's just so difficult. I guess in all the conversations I've had with the sheriff, we can put whatever we want in the contract, but if there's something going on, like you said,
And that's the bottom line.
they're not going to send someone back here to
Exactly.
4 hours
And that's the bottom line. They are an employee of Lincoln County, and wherever they need them, they're going to be.
Right.
And it just at one time that they're not here and something bad goes bad here. It's.
The only way to have that coverage is to have a full-time, our own
Yes.
police department, and I mean, in my opinion, we probably have to have 4 or 5 people just to have 24-hour coverage.
Well, you need at least 4
Yeah,
to have 24/7 coverage.
yeah.
Which
So,
we can work up,
But
you know.
no, hold on a second. Let's just make sure, we need to make sure that we get it all on the record. But any other questions for Steve while we've got him up here?
What would be your suggestion from what you've seen as our compliance officer moving forward?
my suggestion would be for the town council to discuss and look further into reestablishing a police department that would, like it used to be here. There's COPS grants from Department of Justice that they're 3 or 4 year grants. They pay 75% of a police officer's salary for, I believe it's 3 or 4 years, and the city has to pick it up 100% from there on out. So you know, and it's not a short-term deal. It's going to take, you're looking at a year and a half process. And I emailed Monica, she emailed you some information earlier that, right before the meeting, information about starting the police department.
Well, we need to look at that information. I think we just need to come up with a plan, if that's
Yeah.
the direction.
You know, if that's the direction the town wants to go in, that's great. I mean, this is a Band-Aid right now
For sure.
but eventually, you look, we're paying 130, Star Valley's paying 130. Star Valley Ranch, I'm sorry. It's a lot of money for sharing an officer, like, you know.
Yeah, that's.
'Cause you're looking at-
Cover all the costs for that.
Because, you know,
employee.
you're looking at, you know, while he's talking about radios, you're looking at $10,000 to $15,000 radios, $60,000 for a vehicle. And he was talking about records management. So I used a company, it's Spielman, which they're owned by Motorola. They're headquartered out of Salt Lake City. I use their management, and it's a records management system, and then access to the Nacogdoches County Sheriff's Department used it, the police department used it, all the constables, and a couple of independent school districts. We could access jail records and communicate through that with dispatch, blah, blah, blah. And I got the contract for a school, I believe it was $7,800 for a 5-year contract. And I got that in September just before I retired. So, you know, a smaller department, the less money you're going to spend on records management, such like that. And then, but, you know, the thing that he did hit on, we're close to Teton County. You know, you've got to look at the salaries.
Yeah, we're gonna-
And you know, the best way to do that, you look at salaries for all of the smaller departments in this area, and then just come up with an average, something that a man can survive on and live on. And, you know, you get some good officers that want to live in a small community that are dedicated to, you know, where they live. And hire somebody that lives here. We don't want to hire somebody that's driving an hour here to work, you know. That's always my thing where I worked in Nacogdoches. Nacogdoches was a college town, and we had several. In 10 years, I stopped counting at 200 officers hired behind me. But we've hired officers from other towns. I said, no, we need to hire local, so you know your people, and you have a better relationship, working relationship. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
And I'm open for any questions anytime,
Okay.
because I'm here in Alpine forever.
We appreciate it. Thanks for what you're doing for the town of Alpine right now, and you bring up definitely some good points. But so, anyways, Sue, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just was wondering.
Come on up.
Go up to the microphone, please. Sue Colbus, Alpine.
Has anyone done a comparison budget analysis on this for what
we're getting for 130,000 and what we could potentially come up with that's comparable to have someone of this caliber run
Yeah,
a department here? I mean,
the
I'm happy
major-
to
The
do
major
it.
stumbling blocks are, we don't have the facilities to have our own police department. I mean, we've got to buy the vehicle, the radios, all the stuff. We've got to have the administrative module that you're talking about. I mean, it's a big upfront cost. And then we don't even have a holding cell.
But I know that there are grants. I just heard him say that.
Right.
and
I
that-
agree. This
You know
is
what
a
I mean?
long,
Like, I think it's worth looking, comparing numbers.
we need to do that.
Yeah.
And we need to make a long-term plan.
Yes.
At this point, this is our only option. The sheriff has, for years, been saying, we need to up that contract, we need to up that contract. Now, we're going to up the contract, but also get someone that's part-time in the town. So it's what we really need. If we don't do this, I don't know what option we have.
And again, I think it boils down to a comparison analysis, like, here's the budget to get something going here, even part-time, here's the budget, here's what the
Right.
sheriff's department, I mean, what,
But you're talking about planning. Right now, in my opinion,
I'm a
if we don't
planner.
sign this document,
yeah.
we're in trouble.
And no coverage.
Yeah,
Zero
this is-
coverage.
This is
So
for today.
what you're
Yes.
talking about is planning. We
Planning
need to
long
put
term.
that planning, we need to have a 5-year, 10-year plan, and then we need to figure out the grants that'll happen. But yeah, if we don't sign this, we go to zero coverage.
And that's not good, but, and we need it, and that's why I'm here and alarmed, because we do need it, and we've got this incredible human living in our community who's so devoted, it's a gift, and, you know, I'll volunteer my services to budget analysis this thing to death and come up with ways to make it happen, and I'm retired from Merrill Lynch, but had a Series 7 and a Series 66, and I know numbers, so I'm happy to do it. But I think it's really important, and obviously it's too late, but moving forward, it needs some time and some commitment, and
We agree on that point,
Good.
and we will
Thank you.
utilize, thank you for
Thank you.
offering your services, and when we get to that point, we are going to utilize your brain to help us get there, but.
please, I'm
yeah.
always willing to help, you all know that.
We'll put
No,
you on
it's
the,
planted the seed.
we'll put you on the committee for, the future,
Oh, gosh.
future,
Feeling
what should we call this one?
What should we call it?
But
No, but
yeah,
you're right, it's a significant amount of money, and if we can use that towards putting our own dedicated department, if we can figure out
Yeah.
how to make that work, that's obviously something that we can't.
Multiple
ignore at this
grants,
point.
multiple donation, whatever, there's ways to make things happen. Where there's a will, there's a way, I've seen it my whole life, so.
I agree. I think we also need to focus on, our building, how we can, whether we need a new building or we can retrofit our building to do what those needs are. So there's a lot of planning that needs to happen, and like I said, it might be 5, 10-year planning, so, appreciate it. I want to keep this
Okay.
discussion moving forward, but I did want to ask Mr. Sanderson if he had any comments.
You just turned on.
I do, and this is in all due respect to you folks. I think we really need to look at your crime levels. I don't know if it was Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson that said, those who would trade liberty for security deserve neither. In the time that I've been an attorney, 24 years, probably 20 of those I have served as a prosecutor, and 3 of them for different municipalities that have had police forces. In those municipalities, not all of these were incidents while I was there, but we've had 2 indecent liberty cases with officers in those municipalities. One ended up marrying the young girl that he was going around with. We've had 1 lawsuit for age discrimination because out of a 2-officer department, the older officer didn't get promoted to chief, so he sued the town. That cost the town some money. One of the other towns, the officer, one officer department, officer was exchanging sexual favors with single female mothers in lieu of prosecution of their children. In Lincoln County, we've had 1 town officer hold kids hostage and blow up a elementary school in the 80s. In the same town, we had the officer rape and murder an 80-some-odd-year-old woman. And in that same town, later on, we had one officer go to the penitentiary for embezzlement. The problem is, small towns and law enforcement create boredom. Are we to the point that we really need that much police protection? And I like the mayor's stance, let's take a look at it, but we really need to look at the amount of threats that we're really dealing with. And then the other thing is, all due respect to law enforcement, when you not have anything to do, you start looking for problems to solve. And is that what we really want to live under? Not every brown person with an accent is illegal. And so we can't just say, well, there's some brown people, we've got an illegal problem. So these are just things I think we need to look at before we go, okay, we're going to get a full-time police department and start spending that money, because in my experience, the problems that were solved in these small towns with the police department were relatively small compared to the problems that were created. So, and I do respect law enforcement. I don't want to give that air away, but are we ready not only for the problems that we have associated with having a small town police force, is that worth the problems that we're going to supposedly solve? So that's my thought.
Thank you, well put. I also wanted to clarify one thing. The sheriff is not like holding this over our head and saying either you sign this or I go away. So that's not happening. But this was his recommendation on how we could increase our coverage, for our needs, cover our needs, and also bump it up and sharing an officer between the two towns was his solution to, so we didn't have to have a dedicated person. Because if he had to have a dedicated person, then we'd be up over $200,000 a year. So I think it's helps for sure. It helps our problem, and at a cost that probably should have been stair-stepping up over the past 5 years. Now it's kind of come to a head, but.
Well, and I think as we've annexed in an incredible amount of land, as we have a long-stay hotel coming in, we've got a new, cobblestone hotel, we're gonna see new apartment complexes that are phasing in. We're gonna see a lot of differences. I hope not large differences in our crime, but more people, more crime. So I think it's very sage to plant the seed now and start looking at what we can do, what we can apply for, even obviously if it is years down the line. But once these apartment buildings go in, I don't think people see because it hasn't been built yet. I'm just happy we're having this conversation because we're going to see a big change in our small town. So this just might be, I appreciate the police department being able to come.
But then they become Wyoming statutory violations that the sheriff's office will have to respond to usually in those
Right.
situations.
That's a good point.
So.
Right.
Councilman Larson, did you have any comments?
Yeah, this comes up, I don't know, at least annually. I've worked with Sheriff Johnson now for over 10 years. I like what they do. Part of my background is my dad's a retired police officer. I grew up in that realm. Also volunteering here for first response for several years. I know how the system works. I am very comfortable with working with Sheriff Johnson. I'm very comfortable with the needs that we face today, and even with the needs that we face years down the road. He said that one pro of having your own police department is the sheriff or the chief takes his role from the mayor. I would say one advantage to hiring the sheriff's department is the mayor doesn't have that. I like that removal.
Me too.
Therefore, it's on the sheriff's, the sheriff's head. 130,000 in everything that I've seen, you know, this is right in there, especially for the years of service they've given us at a discounted rate. I'm very comfortable with this. I look forward to more patrol work coming up through here. But you know, that also doesn't mean we don't plan for the future. Obviously, that's a given to me, is that I'm always thinking 10 years down the road, where will we be, what will be going on? Because remember, even if we have a sheriff or a police department here, say it's 3 officers, 5 officers, there's still a jail in Kemmer. There's still that, you know, like, okay, if one officer's on, somebody's going to jail,
Yep.
you know.
They're pulling somebody
Yeah,
out.
they're pulling.
Yes.
So for now, for the immediate future, you know, I would even 10 years down the road, depending on population size and what's happening, I'd be more attuned to work something out with the sheriff department as putting the valley into districts, meaning, hey, every town comes in and the sheriff now, instead of just county as a whole, you're covering the Alpine district, you're covering Star Valley Ranch district, you're covering Thane district. And that way we're all protected as opposed to one thing under the town of Alpine. There are a lot of costs involved with this. And this I'm very comfortable with.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
I'm just curious, since he won't know, I know we all feel very comfortable his budget will be approved, but since we won't know, do we want to build something into it that if he doesn't get approved to hire an additional officer and buy an additional truck, that this amount is reduced?
We've got 60 days that we can tell them we'll terminate it.
Okay.
Say, hey, we'll renegotiate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just,
That's a
yeah,
good
just wanted
point,
to
Andrea.
point out if that doesn't happen on his end, where does it leave us?
Right.
He'll get it.
I'm sure.
I think,
I agree, but you
I
know.
think, yeah, he's already
Safety
planning for it,
first.
but that's not a bad idea. You have any other comments?
No, I'm just happy we have detected. and
Shay, would you like to make a comment? Please, come on up.
So one of the items that keeps coming up for me is I always see deputies in town during the day. So, and I understand this, obviously being around deputies my whole life. Is there some way we can talk with them about DUIs are our biggest issue, is in my opinion. And so one of the things I know is when you're near the end of a shift, the last thing you want to do, as you just said too, is have a DUI at 1 a.m. and you're near the end of your shift and you're going to Kemmer. So I don't know if there's something that could be said, hey, during these hours, we would much rather put that effort towards 11 to 1 in the morning, or this, that they would be patrolling during those hours more. Because I feel like with the bad accident we had south of town with the teenagers getting rear-ended and just DUIs, I feel like in general are such on the rise. So that was just something. I don't know if I know patrolling does not really work this way, but if there's
Well,
something we can.
I think we discussed not putting, like a time limit on there because.
Okay.
But they will come up here as often as they want, and trust me, they know.
They know
I mean,
what time to show up?
They know what time to show up. And they say, if someone wants to get a DUI, just go up to Alpine tonight. I mean, it's obvious.
Okay.
They know that's what's.
Okay, and I think
gonna be
because of
going
the
on.
accidents that keep happening.
sure.
They need to
That's part of the
dial in
reason why this came up. This
Okay.
discussion started after that.
After that accident.
After that accident last year. That's when I said, we need to do something, so.
And can I just point out that one of the line items in this agreement does say that if the mayor feels like there's something needed, maybe, Andrea says, people are just flying on Grays River now that it's camping season, we gotta do something, a kid almost got hit, right? Then he can ask for a special patrol, or if we feel like, okay, there's something going on, we're worried about DUIs, he can let him know and he can ask for that. And I think the sheriff has indicated that he will do everything he can to make that happen if it's something that we're looking to have solved.
Right.
One other point that I want to make sure everybody understands, that if there was something that we wanted to direct that was above and beyond, we will also budget for that as well. Like, this will be for 130, but we might put 150 in there. Because if there's something, like you say, there's some big event, whatever, and yes,
Right.
then
Yes.
it's just a simple call to the sheriff, and he asks if anybody wants to do overtime this weekend up in Alpine, and they'll increase the patrols. So I think you will see a lot more patrols, and they're not gonna be just during the day or whatever. Regarding the DUI, there was, someone in town got a DUI at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I heard that someone got pulled over on the highway at 9 a.m. and got a DUI. So you can get a DUI at any time of the day, but, yeah. Yeah, so.
That's a good question.
Yeah, and we have the numbers, we have all the numbers for all the things that they do for us, so it's pretty obvious. All right, so in an effort to keep this meeting moving forward, is there any other comments, questions, anything else? Okay. We have a motion, it's been seconded, now we're ready for a vote. All those in favor of said motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right, moving down the list, resolution number 2024-19, special purpose tax.
Make a motion for approval of resolution number 2024-019, special purpose tax, seeking approval, seeking approval.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion, it's been seconded. Discussion. So this goes back to the special purpose tax that we've been discussing for, I don't know, 6 months or so. What this is the town council needs to determine whether or not they want to participate in the special purpose tax being on the ballot. And in the county, they have to have at least 2/3 of the municipalities have to approve that they will put it on the ballot for it to even be considered by the county commissioners to put it on the ballot. So this resolution kind of lays out our 3 projects that we're bringing forward. And really, it's just saying, does the town council and the town of Alpine want to put it on the ballot? That's basically all this is, and these are the 3 projects that we're bringing forward. We have, just as recently as an hour ago, we were playing with these numbers because we learned that we're likely to, after this goes on the ballot, and if it does pass, all the municipalities will more than likely start a joint powers board, and we will go to get a bond to pay for all these projects upfront. And then the tax will come in, trickle in over the next 4 years or however long it takes, and then it'll pay off that bond. Then, and that's an advantage in my mind because we don't want to have to start the Alpine Greenbelt project and have money trickle in over 4 years to get it done. I'd much rather get it done right up front sooner rather than later and have this great project for the next 4 years. So, anyways, with that being said, does anyone have questions, comments, concerns?
Well, I think if we don't put anything forward, because we all understand that an extra tax, we don't know what the people will do with that on the ballot, but should 2/3 of it pass and Alpine doesn't put anything forward, then we've missed out on an opportunity.
Absolutely.
So that's where my vote is coming from, is I'd rather have something just in case the rest of the county decides that this is something that they want to do moving
Yeah,
forward.
agreed. Let the voters
Absolutely, 100%.
determine whether or not they want to
Right.
pay this.
And so why those numbers were tweaked, just so you know, is they were also rounded from the first rendition, but there's assumed 10% additional cost because of the bond. So,
Yeah, they all
That's-
pretty much went up 10%.
yeah.
Right, okay.
And there is a spreadsheet that was also attached when we made that revision, just so you could see what the math was. If you guys want to look at it, but.
And one other point of clarification. If we do pass this today, we do have to do a county-wide resolution on the 21st. Then that resolution, if it gets approved by the 2/3, then it goes to the county.
Right,
So this is the first step.
this is preliminary.
Any other comments?
Yeah, this one's tough, because I like that we have the projects. We need to have it on there. It blows me away that this was even started. Because to me, I mean, they're good projects. Don't get me wrong about that. I like the projects that are on there. However, I think overall it was a waste of time, not only for our community, but for all the other communities, because I just don't think this has a chance of passing by any means. I hope I'm wrong. I do. It's a good thing. But, yeah, yeah. If it fails and it comes up in the future with a similar sentiment throughout the county, I hope we get ahead of this well ahead of time and we just say no, because we've already spent time, money, everything on this.
Multiple years.
Again, as taxes go, this is a good one. However, I just don't think it has a chance to pass.
Yeah, it was very close 6 years ago, so one of the major factors is the belief that the county kind of did us a disservice by putting equipment on last minute. And then the voters just read through the whole ballot, and then at the very end, they said, a plow? Like, why are we doing this? So I think that's the main reason why it lost last time. And also, they knew this before, but tons of research on where the people that live in unincorporated areas, over 50% of the people that live in unincorporated areas in the county live in the lower valley. So that's why we think now we're putting forward these projects that are more suited towards recreation. Thane's putting forward a recreation area. It's not like a rec center, but I think if there's a chance, bringing forward these projects will give us a fighting chance. So yeah, I'm very hopeful, but yeah, I think we just need to do what's right to get it on the ballot and let the voters make the determination. So any other comments? With no further comments, all those in favor of Resolution 2024-19 Special Purpose Tax, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Resolution passes. Let's see, next we have third reading of the annexation process.
Make a motion seeking approval on the third reading of ordinance number 2024-001, uniform annexation process.
Second.
We have a motion. It's been seconded. Discussion. Madam Clerk, do you want to just give us a real quick update on the differences between the second reading and the third reading?
Yeah, so when it was reviewed, we spent a lot of time looking over it, and we felt like it was a bit cumbersome and not clear. And we don't want people to believe that the town of Alpine is anti-annexation, and we felt like in some ways that's the foot we were putting forward. There wasn't real clarity in the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission, so that was clarified as well. So what we did is we shifted some of the requirements about some of the upfront evidence that was required to the application so that they will submit it there. And we feel like by asking the questions, it's just a friendlier way to approach the situation, and it will all be reviewed through the process. So we wanted it to just be clear. The objectives of this, in the mind of everybody who was involved, was pretty clear. We wanted to be able to charge fees for the time that this takes, because it's a very labor-intensive process for the employees at Alpine. But we wanted there to be a pre-annexation application to collect some data and a requirement of a pre-annexation conference. So we have that now. I mean, we had it before, but it's just very, and we feel like it's very clear. And then we wanted there to be this very clear planning and zoning process. And so the planning and zoning process is not defined in the ordinance, nor was it before. However, we've created the applications for annexation, which is completed before planning and zoning, that has very specific requirements about what needs to be submitted based on the size of the property coming in. And so basically, we kind of made our application really comprehensive to cover everything we needed, and the ordinance just requires it. So is how we handled it, because it allows us in 6 months from now for you guys to look at the application and say, hey, we need this or we need that, or we're not comfortable with how this is going. This isn't really meeting our needs, and we can edit the application and still end up without editing an ordinance. So that was kind of our overall goals of the committee. I feel like to be able to put something in place that requires very specific information. Majors require a planned unit development process. We've defined that in the application and in the fact that the materials that we've created for checklists and task lists for both planning and zoning and myself as clerk. So we've created the whole package in this. So we have applications, tasks, check-off lists for all the steps, and a flow chart. So, and that we'll be able to give to everybody. So, I mean, we're pleased with the way it is. Yeah. And it also allows for the deposit.
Yeah, mostly,
That's the most important thing,
Yeah.
quite honestly, is the deposit, so that they pay for all the engineering costs
yep.
as well. So, but yeah,
Any questions regarding the process, the changes, anything like that?
So, for majors, $10,000. How
Deposit.
do we justify that?
it's a deposit.
It's a deposit.
Just a deposit, so what,
So the fees are, I think it's 1,000 and 2,500. So, for the actual annexation, there's a $500 pre-annexation conference fee, which should cover the costs of collecting the initial data, having the meeting, and doing the planning and zoning review. The process of actually petitioning, they can petition after the planning and zoning process, and so Planning and Zoning Commission will do a complete recommendation. They'll review all the information we're requiring, and they will make recommendations that will appear in your hearing. But the process that is the most time-consuming and the most involved is the report, in trying to navigate that process. It's very expensive, engineering fees.
so if I have that's for if they plan to annex and build vertically.
No, everybody who annexes, whether or not they ever plan to build, has to have an annexation report. And the annexation report requires that we determine how much it will cost them to hook up to our services. And so in the case like the one you're going to be seeing here on the 24th for Zai Hafiz, it took them about 4 to 5 weeks to get me the information back. But they have laid out a plan to develop that property. When she connects, she'll have to run infrastructure completely in front of the property. I mean, it's a huge cost. What it delineates is a very big cost to her.
So if
She's
it's bare
not gonna
land,
do it.
if it's bare land, does that mean it's a minor?
No.
No,
No,
it depends
if
on
it's
the
2.5 acres or
Okay.
less,
So if I have 5 acres of bare land that I don't know what I want to do with, I don't have any plans, I just know I want to be in the town of Alpine,
then you're gonna
It's
come in.
still
and you-
$10,000?
No, so in that scenario, we just want to see the plan. If you want to come in and you don't have a plan, then I don't know, we may not bring you in at that point.
Okay.
Because we need to understand for our future growth, what we're looking at as far as connections. So if someone comes in with, let's just say 10 acres and they have 2 lots shown on it, we know that's not likely going to be that, but they come in, that's fine, they can come in. But then they're going to have to go through the process to get I'm sorry, I'm brain fart here.
Planned unit development.
Yeah, it's PUD.
So
Yeah.
you're gonna have to come in and replat it at a later
Yes.
time. And so that's a whole nother process that we're looking at as well and making sure we'll figure that out through the change of fees, whatever. But our plan is, we want to see what your sketch plan is. And so that's built into this. And just to clarify, the deposit is $2,500 for a minor and $10,000 for a major. And that is basically to cover the cost for the engineering and all these things. And if you go above and beyond that, then we're gonna stop and you're gonna pay us more, and then we're gonna use that money. And we just think that $10,000 for a major is more likely, like, they'll go above 2,500 for a major easy. So we made
Well,
it.
2,500, I can see, 10,000, that's
It's
where I
only a
start
deposit.
going.
So
Yeah.
if you don't use it, you get it back.
You get it back. It's a deposit.
Right.
So you deposit the money. And one of the other forms that is in the annexation package that we've created is a form to document every expense. Like, so
Yes.
every engineering bill that we get, for that, to review that, to determine the cost of connecting water and sewer to the property. Anything that we actually spend out of pocket, it's all should be tracked and recorded. And then once it's either approved or denied by town council, they are given their,
Money back.
it's subtracted and then they're
Extra.
given their
It's
money
gonna be
back.
much more comprehensively tracked.
Yeah.
And we talked to
And we,
multiple from the engineering, we talked to Christine, we talked to staff. We tried to figure out what's your average man hours, what are the average costs, and so that's
Yeah.
how we got to that number, because it is a big number. But we figured, well, it's a deposit, and the amount of hours that are going into this actually justifies, it's just, we've never quantified it before.
but you're right, if somebody has 3 acres,
Yeah.
it may be a lot, but they'll get their money back.
Yeah.
We're not gonna
It'll all
keep
be
their money.
tracked.
Like, we're
Well, it's not only that, it's, do they have, if I have 3 acres, I know what my bank account says, and giving a $10,000 deposit to join the town of Alpine is cost prohibitive. And I don't want to be cost prohibitive. for
If they're
somebody do
going
that.
to come in and use our infrastructure, then they understand that if they're gonna put the density in there that they need to make it worth their while, then $10,000, in our opinion, is not that much. And that also includes a lot of the engineering and everything to come in, so.
Well, I do think the process we're asking for, and in truth, there may be people who don't fit into this. You're right, there may be somebody who
There's gonna be
literally
somebody who does.
has a 3-acre piece of ground with nothing on it.
Not everybody's
and then
trying to
is gonna
build high
build-
density.
Right,
Yeah.
and they just want to.
And
And
gonna build a
those are the people who
single-family
I
home.
want to attract.
Yeah, and in truth.
And again, that 10,000
Perhaps
is
we
cost
allow the
prohibitive.
Planning and Zoning Commission the ability to say that, in this case,
It's not.
they're a minor.
I think there has to
Do
be
you know what I mean?
flexibility within
yeah,
it.
'cause they
so
get
that
to
we don't
determine that.
discourage, well, and I'm hoping we have single-family home people that are just outside, that they want to start annexing in if it's a benefit to them.
When do they
So-
get this back? Like, what's the time? Like,
So they deposit it before,
through-
when they petition to annex,
So
and they get it
minimum
back
4
when it's
months.
done.
Minimum 4 months,
Probably closer to 5.
right.
Yeah, because you have to have 3 readings.
Yep.
Especially if we're doing the engineering.
Yeah, we built in 3 weeks for the engineering, but it could be more.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
it's-
and that's what's costing us the most amount of money right now is the engineering. And our goal is not
To discourage.
to discourage
But
it.
we have to pay for our
But
time.
if they want to hire their own engineer, they don't need to put a deposit down. I
Perfect.
believe that's what it says.
We did have a
Well,
contingency.
yeah, also,
Yeah.
if they hire their own engineer, they paid the 10,000, we didn't use any of the engineering from
They get it
our,
back,
they
yeah.
get it back. So.
Either way. But Yeah, our goal is just to cover costs. We've spent a lot of money on engineering for annexations recently.
And then the other thing that I don't know, it just rubs me kind of wrong are the questions on the answer sheet. What is the intended or planned use of the property if annexed and granted? What are the benefits that shall be provided to the town if the annexation is
You can
granted?
talk directly to Mr. Sanderson about that.
We
'cause
took
that's
it
right
out of
the
the
state
ordinance.
statute.
So, in my opinion, government, I don't want government to justify what I want to do with my land. Why shouldn't it just say, do you plan on being residential, R1, R2, commercial, MRC? Because that way we have a defined thing. This is
Zoning's
pretty
on there.
ambiguous.
I would agree with that, maybe, but I guess the one thing is we have these things, I mean, maybe it was a year or so ago, and they wanted to annex in, but and I think you were involved in this.
Probably if it was a year ago.
Yeah, do you remember, and they wouldn't really tell us what they wanted, it was over by Alpine Meadows on the west side.
Right.
Really didn't, so how are we supposed to plan with it? And that's the
Yeah.
kind of thing, is the information when you decide whether this is going to be, because the statute says you have to make a finding that it's within the health, safety, and welfare of the community, and that's why these questions are there, is to help determine, well, is this going to be within the health, safety, and welfare of the community?
So I dig that. It's
Okay.
just, I like the R1, R2, because that to me is more defined. We
It
as
asks
a
where the
town have an
zoning
LUDC that says,
What is the
hey,
requested zoning of the area sought to be annexed is on there.
right,
That's
but
the
what are the
He
benefits?
doesn't like the,
I
he
don't
doesn't like
what
the
are
second one.
Yeah,
See,
definitely
and
do
that's-
not like, what are the benefits that this shall provide
So-
to the town of Alpine?
We took it out of the ordinance and put it on the
Well, who's to say,
application.
I might think a benefit is not, or you might think something
So-
different,
But you
so.
put down the benefits as an applicant. You put down and say, this is why I would be a beneficial.
He's just saying why
addition."
it's none of our business.
I may not agree.
It is,
Well,
and
yeah,
I
that's
see it in
fine.
that sort of situation, and I don't mean to pick on Mr. Cottom, because he's not here, but I'm going to pick on Mr. Cottom, because it's always this song and dance, this is going to be a great thing
Oh,
for
yeah,
the
it's a
town-
win-win. I
town.
don't
It's a
like that
win-win.
either.
Well, tell us what it is. I
Right.
mean, that's all I'm asking, or what I wanted
Yeah.
is to ask. Right, if you're gonna say that this is a great thing, then you tell us what the great thing is. I mean, if you're
See, I don't
small
even
lot
want to
guy.
tell them it's a great thing. I just want to know.
Well,
R1,
you
R2.
don't, but we've got
But
a
the
lot of these
town,
that come in
yes.
that, it's this, it's gonna be a win-win for the town, will be such a great benefit. Well, tell
Take your
us
song
what
and
you-
dance out there.
Right, if you're gonna say that, then you tell us what the benefit is, and let's see what your evidence is that this is going to be a benefit.
of our annexations,
Now, if it's just Jeremy's 5-acre lot, well, the benefit is, right now, it's gonna be R 129, or, not R129, sorry, I'm thinking cars. R1, and, we're gonna put some new houses that'll be a benefit to the town in that way. I agree with you. I kind of don't like government knowing my business, but when we've got people coming in claiming that this is the basis for having us in, all right,
Yeah.
prove it to us.
Can I also clarify, the onus is on the town to make sure that we're abiding by the state statute.
Right.
We have to answer these questions. So
Yes.
if we ask the question and they come back and say, none of your business, that's an answer. Like, we still have we have the authority to approve or disapprove their application at that point. So in my mind, taking it out of the ordinance was a good thing, and that's part of the reason why we made such a drastic change in putting it on the application. So we can try to get to the bottom of those answers and at least say, we asked the question and we think we've got the right answer, but the onus is on the town to answer those questions from the
To
annexation.
have the evidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Onus is on the,
Yes.
to bring it in,
Well-
to provide the evidence.
That's not the way I read it. Monica, didn't we read that where it said that?
Yeah, the statute says that it is that they have to
Yeah,
decide.
that's
that this
based on
Yes.
what?
Evidence.
Based on the evidence
Okay.
that they provide.
Provide.
Yeah,
Well,
and
that
that's
makes
why-
sense.
and
That
I-
makes
And I'm
sense.
glad you didn't take this out of there, because there is a specific section within the ordinance that says that they have to provide clear and
Yes.
convincing.
No, and that's why I left it in, because I thought that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
And
is-
that's what we
to me, that
want
is
in the
appropriate.
application, is clear
And convincing.
convincing evidence, yes, I
Yep.
agree.
Right now, I think it's been blanket, and they read it and they sign it, but again, they don't provide any evidentiary
No,
support
it's just these
for-
great thing, oh, it's gonna
Yes.
be a great thing for your tax
Yes.
base and, oh, okay.
Right. We want neighbors to know.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is just the easy part. Also, to be clear in case the grapevine out there, I do not have 3 acres or 5 acres
Adjacent to the.
adjacent
the
to
town
any of
Alpine?
this.
Okay.
One of the other.
These are all hypotheticals.
One of the other things we did with this is we expanded the notification area. The state statute says 300 feet. We did it to 500 feet, and we also added a requirement that they have to post the property.
Yes.
That it's,
Yeah.
they're wanting to annex, post the annexation summary on a sign, because we hear a lot from the
We
people who
didn't
come in
know.
here that we had no idea.
Yeah.
And so our goal by adding those requirements was to hopefully help other people know that this property's trying to come into the town. So,
Tried to think of as many levels of transparency as we could.
without being too
Crazy.
much, yeah.
Any other comments, questions from town council? Thank you for the clarification.
I did send it to planning and zoning. Does planning and zoning have anything that they'd like to add before we? I was gonna read it all weekend. Sorry, Mom.
You took my books down. So I did read it. So call us again. Hi. I did read it, and it makes sense. And there's a lot of focus on annexation, and it's all good. And I'm dealing with people asking me questions about potential annexation. And there's another layer of this to me, buzzing around town and looking at everything and being on planning and zoning and living in town and having a lot of real estate experience and having investors ask me specifics, is that I'm trying to understand how is the council looking at the master plan of our community and how this affects that. And that's my concern. I'm trying to figure out what this place looks like in 10 years, and I can't wrap my head around it right now. And I think that's kind of just as important. So I'm just throwing it out there that this is all good and it's a step in the right direction, but I think there's a bigger issue at play here.
Yeah, we want to update the master plan, and it also, we found out that we might be able to get on the coattails of an economic development plan that's being done by the county and potentially put money in that whole process to pay for an update of our master plan. So we found last year that it's much more extensive process than what had been budgeted for previously. And anyways, that's high on our list of things that we want to do is update the master plan.
So I will say this, there are a lot of smart people on this council, and there are a lot of smart people in town. And I think a master plan can be worked on, not only with the input of the community, but a lot of smart minds that can sit at the table and make some big decisions.
It has to be done by everyone in the community, and that's what-
Exactly, exactly.
It's not
And
just going to be 5 people sitting up here.
but that's what I mean, like the community, I've been researching this lately because of what I'm dealing with. And I think it's going to take a village to make our town a town. And I know that sounds crazy, but
Hold on a second. I agree. I want to make sure we're focusing
Yeah,
just on
but-
this right now, and I appreciate the
yeah,
comment,
but I'm
and
throwing,
we'll get to
it's
there.
kind of all kind of part of the same in a way. And
Contiguous, yeah.
yeah, so that's why I'm bringing it up, and I will volunteer my services for that
We're
too.
gonna use you for that too. We plan on, you're gonna be real busy.
No, but you're right, and that's absolutely something on our radar, and that's just, we need to
Okay.
devote resources.
Any other comments, questions, feedback? Andrea, you're all on board?
Looks good.
Okay. If there's no other comments, I think we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of ordinance number 2024-001, uniform annexation process on third reading, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ordinance carried on third reading. Okay, we'll keep working through here. Okay, now we've got just some kind of clerical stuff we need to do here real quick. Do we have,
Motion to seek approval for pay
Yep.
application number 4, JL Concrete, in the amount of 100,093.
Yes.
Let me correct that. It's $101,931.91. Emily caught that error before the meeting. Thank you,
I think
Emily.
the
No, I
mayor
was like, that
caught it.
number looks.
In the amount of $101,931.91.
Second.
So the payment application only says 100,931.91.
that's what we just clarified, so it's 101.
She
I wrote it,
said
I wrote
101.
it down wrong again. That's me.
100,931.91.
Thank you.
Correction, seeking approval for pay application number 4 to JL Concrete in the amount of $100,931.91.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded. The lien waiver is wrong then.
That's, where did, I saw that number
Yeah.
somewhere.
Lean relies.
Yeah, that's where I wrote it down from.
Yeah, they'll have to,
Monica, is this our document, this lien waiver?
So that was created and submitted to the town. JL Concrete signed it, and then Sarah notarized it.
Who,
So it came from Jorgensen.
okay. I think we need to just
Yeah.
look at these lien relaws.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got the wrong number on there. I think we just need to make sure we've got all this stuff
so
covered.
let's just take $1,000 from Jorgensen.
They're not,
Sold.
they're unlikely to give us money back.
I don't have an,
So did the engineers, like, review this? This is a pretty big number.
I know.
Okay, so this isn't off, this is all budgeted stuff, but we, it's above and beyond the original scope. And,
But I guess if they want to waive 101.
so clarify for me, oh, yeah, yeah,
all goes back 3 to 4 years, so.
yeah, this is above and beyond to get us over the finish line. This is what it costs to,
let me do that.
for this monstrosity. But all the numbers are kind of clarified in here, but I can't remember exactly what this one was regarding. It
So-
says on here.
On the application and certificate for payment, the amount is $100,931.91.
what we-
So that we can make the payment. Maybe we could approve that for payment, and then we can deal with the paperwork. If it's $1,000 off, we'll fix it later.
It's to our advantage.
It's to our advantage, but that's what it, yeah, this is what, that's the amount that Kevin signed off on.
Yeah,
I think, I don't know which number's right, so let's go with the smaller one.
I'll say, as far as
No,
the
on
receipt
this-
goes, it's all the 100,000.
It's
It's
the
all, it's the,
100,000.
yeah, it's only the
on this
lien release
document,
is
it
the
says the
1,000.
pay application. I just think the lien waiver's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the lien waivers might be wrong. I think it's a typo.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, can you
Yes.
scroll back up? So original contract sum $663,252.
Yep.
And, right, now we're contract sum to date $874,410.
So we're 30% over?
This is only on one thing.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, is our grant, like, how much is this coming out of your actual budget now?
A lot.
It is.
Okay, and we're not thinking legal action whatsoever?
We got six years on a contract.
Yeah.
Is that 6 years is the window?
Yeah.
Anyways, we have a lot on the agenda here. Let's keep moving forward. Does anyone have any questions regarding this specifically that,
How far off from completion?
I think
Are
we're
we? 'Cause
within,
we've had
we're
multiple change
within a
orders
couple
already.
months. I wish Kevin was here because he
I
could
know.
speak to this. But I don't anticipate many more change orders because we're in the final, the final run here down the street. But just to clarify, part of this is for the new part of the building that we've got to do where it's to make it explosion proof.
Yes.
So, and, yeah,
Worst case scenarios were not in the previous engineering plan. So we are having.
no, we've far surpassed what Mr. Blondie, set for, 4 years ago or whatever, when they first started playing this.
Gone from like 3 million to 5 or 6?
4 million, yeah. Can't wait to hit the on button on that thing and get it up and working. But anyways, any other comments, questions on this? We need to pay this so JL Concrete can pay their subs because they've been holding back on payment until they got this check. So all the subs would be very happy if we paid. This is for work that's already been done.
Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of pay application number 4 for JL Concrete in the amount of $100,931.91, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Number 2,
Motion for approval for change order number 3, pretreatment plant, pretreatment building for the increase of $39,510.22, if that is correct.
Second.
we have a motion, it's been seconded. Let's just see real quick.
39,500.
Change order electrical conduit excavation, change order. Digging trench for electrical. Crane, ground thaw, and generator pad and transformer.
Yeah,
Looks like
this is
that is
additional
correct.
cost because DEQ required a generator that Baba Blondie did not spec.
Yeah, he thought we could use the backup power that we actually don't have backup power for the sewer plant.
He said it wasn't necessary.
Yeah, they said it wasn't necessary. So again,
DEQ required it for a permit.
any questions on this? If there's no further questions, all those in favor of pay application number 4 to JL,
Number 3.
number 3 to JL Concrete in the amount of $39,510.22, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Number 4, I guess, right?
Make a motion seeking approval for change order number 4, pretreatment plant, pretreatment building for the increase of $56,499.47.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded. Let's look at this receipt. Let's blow it up.
Correct.
This was because Baba Blondie, when he did the calculations for what was required in the heating system for the treatment plant, did not use the correct required specifications for determining the lowest possible temperature. And he didn't go back far enough over the right span, and so the average, the lowest temperature was less than originally in the design, and it had to be redesigned to meet the actual lowest temperature per DEQ's requirements.
Yeah, so the heating system had to be upgraded. So, thank you, Mr. Blondie. Any questions regarding that information? All those in favor of change order number 4, pretreatment plant, pretreatment building in the amount of $56,499.47, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Dang it, Frank.
I know, I'm gonna keep on you, man. Use your gavel.
All right,
Wait till the end
one
of the
more.
meeting
Let's-
every time.
Make a motion seeking approval for change order number 5, pretreatment plant, pretreatment building for the decrease of $11,200 even.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded. Yes, this is a decrease, this is a good one. It's
I
not
don't
pulling,
approve of this.
it's not pulling up. Oh, here we go. Monica, do you know what this is
I
regarding?
don't know. All I see is that, there's a tape.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is. I wasn't involved in that.
all right, well, I think this is good no matter what, let's save your money. Take it where we can get it, right?
Take it.
Any other questions? All those in favor of change order number 5, pretreatment plant, pretreatment building, in a decrease in the amount of $11,200, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right. Last but not least is the revised proposal from Altitude Air for heating and air conditioning in the other half of this building. Right now, there's no air conditioning over there, getting into the summer season. We've already upgraded that side of the building with cove heaters because the boiler died in the middle of the winter, and we had to do emergency heat over there for the daycare. So now, with this unit, same, almost a mirror image of what we've got here on that side of the building. And there's a few times in the coldest part of the year where this system doesn't work because of the heat pumps, the way they function. And that's why you have to have the backup with the cove heaters. But how many days was that, Monica, that you guys ended up?
Twice.
Yeah, maybe 2 days. So it's kind of ridiculous that we have to do that, but,
Well, it starts losing efficiency at -4. Because there's not enough warm air for the heat pumps to pull from.
as long as it's spinning, it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. There was only, I can't remember, maybe it was -4 or
No,
whatever.
that's as per altitude air.
Right, but I'm just saying, it does go lower.
Yeah.
Like, I have this system at my house, and there wasn't a single day this winter that it wasn't working at my house.
Yeah.
But there was a couple days here where it wasn't working. They came in, and I walked in, and it was like 55 degrees in here, and they had these little heaters, and I was like, what's going on, guys? And they're like, it was on a Monday, I think, after.
Yeah. Yeah, he said the lockout will happen around -14,
Yeah.
but it does start losing efficiency.
Yeah, so it's a couple days out of the year, but, just turn on the cove heaters for those few times, and then it should be good. The bigger thing is air conditioning. Monica, what was it like being in here over the summer last year with the air conditioning?
It's bad.
It's better.
Or, no, with it, yes. Without it, it's bad. I mean, even, gosh, it's so much more comfortable in the town council meetings, so thank you very much.
Without
I mean,
having
we
to
used
hear
to
that
sit
wind,
here and
yeah.
die.
Yeah,
Turn the wind
we can actually
off
hear
so
each
we
other.
can-
Yeah,
Meeting.
it helps with, it does, it also helps with noise. Because we were utilizing window units, which are very loud and distracting.
Inefficient.
Yeah, and inefficient. So, yeah, it's been a blessing, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
it was built in the early 90s, and it's poorly insulated.
It's hot.
Especially if we bring a big crowd.
Yeah.
Then we put a unit in that window back there to cool it off in here.
But
But
you had
we'd
to
have to
turn it
turn it
off
off for the
during the
meeting, because we
meeting.
couldn't hear anything,
It's bad. Yeah,
So we'd like the kids to not be baking. all
burning
that.
up, yeah.
it's pretty important.
I mean, my kid went to daycare over there. And
Yeah.
but- Right?
I'm sorry?
I mean, $60,000 on this building. I mean, I show houses that use cove heating and like evaporative coolers. I just don't understand, like, noise in a daycare. I don't think, I mean, it's noisy.
Well, I think when
I
you
just
look
can't-
at what our valley has, the majority of our valley does not have air conditioning.
No.
That's about 2,000 square feet. It's just under 2,000
It's
square feet.
2,500 square feet.
But a $33,000
Luke told me
system is for
1995.
like a 3,000 square foot home.
It's 2,500 square feet. This building is 5,000 total, and we have
But
2,500.
60 grand on 5,000 square feet. I don't know if we're $1 million over on a sewer plant, or how much can we manage on?
Two separate budgets.
Well, I know that, I do agree.
So,
but I just think-
here's
I
the
just can't
counterpoint.
I don't see
Shay, if you'd like to make a comment, I suggest you come up over here so it can be on there. But the counterpoint is, money was not ever spent on this building. We're trying to bring it up to snuff, what it really needs. This change will make it, for the next 25 years, this system could be used. It has a 10-year warranty. It's necessary. I mean, it's made such a difference in here. When I first came in here, it was uncomfortable, to say the least. The boilers stopped working. In the middle of the winter over there, stopped working. The kids had no. So we ended up spending $30,000 to put cove heaters in, just in an emergency stance. So I personally think it's the most efficient heating and cooling you can get on the market today. It is. That's just the way it is. Everything is going towards this. So as far as the budget is concerned, Monica, there's currently money in the budget to do this sooner rather than later, correct?
There's still money in the 6180. I can go tell you what that is if you'd like.
Why don't you just see what the balance is on that, and then we'll listen to another comment from Sue.
Hi again. So if we're talking about nothing's been done to the building, things need to happen, I don't know how long their lease is, I don't know if this becomes a full admin for the town, but I live right over there and I look at the exterior of this building too, and I'm wondering what the plans are for that, because I think the exterior could use some work. I mean, I'd rather see the money go to something like that. I don't have an air conditioner. I wouldn't even conceive an air conditioner.
But your house was also built last year with modern efficiencies. This building was built in the 90s.
No, I get it, but there's also like other.
It's 30-year-old walls, insulation.
So are there plans for the exterior of this building? I think our municipality should look great.
I'd love to.
All in good time.
I would love to spend the money on the outside, and maybe we can figure out, maybe we could have a community project and have something done. We have to take care of the inside, because honestly, if we don't have air conditioning over there, then I don't know, maybe they'll just walk away. They have nowhere else to go, but I honestly don't know what they would do.
So it's that bad,
It gets hot.
does it?
It's got a metal.
Okay, because I don't see that. Like, to me, it's like Wyoming. Why would you need an air conditioner? I mean, that's just me.
It's very hot, and I will tell you, when they come to install this, they can't be up there any time after like 10 in the morning. It's so hot in the attic. They have to get in the attic to put these units in. So that's part of the thing. He said, I'll come and do it, but I'm out of here at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Is he the best bid we got? Because that seems really high.
Okay, another point of clarification. We did this last summer, and so he was the only one that bid, or he started this. We asked him to bid. Then we kicked it back at a suggestion from someone in the audience that said, why don't you get more bids? And we're like, okay, let's get more bids. Put it out to bid. No one else responded.
Did we put a specification for anything? Like it had to be the highest efficiency? I'm just wondering, because I
For
don't
this?
remember seeing, yeah.
For this, I mean, yeah, this is the top of the line best unit that you can get. on
Oh,
the
I know
market.
that.
Yeah.
I just meant when we sent it out to bid, did we just get an air conditioning bid in general? Because I know one of the obstacles is there is no ducting throughout the building.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
makes this unit so perfect and inexpensive compared to having to run ductwork to get the air transferred from the condensing units to the heads or whatever. So,
We have this in our office in Jackson, the same system.
Yeah.
Works great.
yep, my house has it too. Agreed with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that I get it, and it seems like a lot, but then again, since we're talking about such an old building, updating it, this, that, and the other,
Efficiency in general.
let's look at the outside too at some point, because that's where I'd be putting some money. And this municipality needs to look like professional and upstanding in the community, and whether it moves or whether it stays, or I don't know what the plans are, but
I
I'm
think
kind
that
of,
goes along with the long-term planning that we discussed before. So.
Yeah, so
but
I'm just
agreeing
throwing my,
on what you're saying, we all agree that we would love to have some, new coat of paint or stain or whatever.
yeah,
But
cool, okay, so
Monica,
long
do
as,
you have some
okay.
information for us?
Thank you, Sue.
So, in the general fund, we all know that there is a huge surplus in snow removal. There is also still $20,000 available in the Economic Development Fund, which was typically used for these types of things,
But we do
historically.
have quite a few projects that have been discussed to use those funds, so,
You mean this year, in this fiscal budget, or next year?
for this year.
What,
Before July?
Yeah.
Like what?
what,
Oh, actually not before July, for
Yeah.
2025.
So
Yeah,
what
no, we're talking about
is
this year.
doing this now.
He's talking about
using
this year.
Surplus money that we have in the budget during this fiscal year, get it done now. If we don't do this and order this now, then we definitely won't have air conditioning in there for the summer. If we wait till July 1st through the whole budget process and order it, then definitely we will be lucky to get it in for winter,
Yeah.
for sure. That's why this is coming up now.
Yeah.
I just wish for 3 months out of the year, we were able to find a different,
I agree. I wish
This is a
we had a
huge
better building
amount
to
of money.
start with.
Well, so one of the things you brought up, you've already spent 30,000
Yep.
on Cove Heat, so you'll be at 63,000 on 2,500 square feet. That's what people spend on like building a home.
I know.
Like, but if you don't insulate, then are we just heating to the sky, or is the air conditioning going out? I just am like, $63,000 on that just seems
do you have air conditioning,
astronomical.
Shay?
No, and I have Cove Heating. I've never used anything else. Cove Heating in the hundreds of houses I've been through is the most efficient way of heating. It's heating the things you're touching. It's heating the room. Yes, this is glorious, but it comes at such a price tag. I just can't see its justification on, again, $63,000 for that rental. And I don't know. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shay.
Any other comments? Yeah, so just to clarify, this would be essentially moving money around in the budget to move forward right away, get this ordered and in. And, sounds like we have some money in the budget to accommodate that. And, yeah, it's a lot of money to put into that space, but I don't know what the better option is, so I would be interested to hear. Any other comments?
Is it too late to get more bids? And have someone grind a little?
Any, I don't want to go there if we don't need to. I'd rather just get this done. So anyways, let's go ahead and put it to a vote. All those in favor of Altitude Air Mitsubishi multi-zone heat pump air conditioning system? Did we actually, we have a motion?
I don't
It's been
think
seconded. I'm sorry, it's been so long.
Yeah,
I didn't-
I
we-
did not write
I
one
don't think
down.
we did we?
Okay,
Make a motion seeking approval for installation of Mitsubishi multi-zone heat pump air conditioning systems and allowing Mayor Green to sign the contract.
Second.
we have a motion. It's been seconded. Any further discussion?
It's not cheap. We get it.
Okay, since there's no further discussion, all those in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. Now we move on to public comment. Oh, dang it, I forgot after that. I always forget this. Any public comment?
Why? Keep going. You're on a roll. We're listening.
You might as well.
Okay, and I know this, and I'm just gonna bring it up because you had so many change orders with the pretreatment plant, and I brought it up, and I know you guys are sick of hearing it, but I just feel like if we truly followed the progression of what Baba Blondie did to this town and $1 million of lost money, I cannot believe we're not pursuing legal action. And I know it's uncomfortable, and I am not litigious.
It's
Like,
not uncomfortable.
okay,
But
so,
it's a legal issue, and it will definitely not be addressed in a public meeting.
okay, then we
That's-
shall. So that's my only public
So
comment.
that's
It's just
my-
very
but that's-
frustrating and sad
yeah.
to see our money as taxpayers that comes to the town and just poor stewardship. Not on your part, that is not what I'm saying, just in general, so.
It's very frustrating. For the
It's
council
frustrating
as
for
well.
all of us.
Every single one of us.
Yes.
I feel like, again, this is a professional that carries errors and omissions insurance, and you're right, off the record, but I'll just say, to know that $1 million+ has been lost because of inefficiencies of one individual is very disheartening, so.
Agreed.
Thanks, Shay. I will say that as long as I have any control in the town of Alpine, we will never do a project like this again. Everything will be lined out to a T. There will be contingencies. You'll know exactly what's going in there. Basically, this has been a design build for 4 years. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and man, I cannot wait until we get there.
None of us
So,
can. It's a nightmare.
very excited for that. So, with no further public comment, do we have executive session?
Yes.
We do.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't even realize. I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
Want to do a 5-minute break to clear the
Yeah.
room?
Yeah, I'll recess for 5 minutes before we go into executive session. But thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
No, this is the smallest
Well,
meeting
we have
we've
7
had in a
people
while.
watching online.
We had 43 views.